Do you know, I was feeling like playing some pointy guitars today, and I thought I may as well take you along for the journey with me, talk a little bit about pointy guitars in general, show you a few of mine in my collection, and just have some fun. One of the real beauties of the solid body electric guitar is that its body shape can really be anything. It can be cut into any shape you'd like depending on the design. It's in stark contrast to the acoustic guitar, where you have to factor in acoustics for one of the actual instrument. There's structure of the instrument, there's bracing inside, there's a lot more to think about. It's a lot more complex, especially when an electric guitar is essentially just a plank of wood. This shape here came out 75 years ago. This is the telly shape, one of the most popular common guitar shapes you'll find today. And this is the Strat shape, another very common shape that you'll see in a lot of guitars, a lot of variations of this shape too, but a very common shape. And finally, out of the three most common shapes, you'll also find the Les Paul shape. Maybe more variations rather than exact, because the Les Paul shape still has a trademark versus the telly shape and the Strat shape not having it, but still a very common variation of the electric guitar shape, the Les Paul shape. So those are the three most common guitar shapes, but there's a lot more uncommon guitar shapes, or far less common guitar shapes, and I have a few in my collection that I just like to talk about, play them, and have some fun. So this was my first pointy guitar. It was the third guitar I ever had. My first guitar was a Strat shape, which was a Washburn X series. My second guitar was the Les Paul shape there that I showed you, an Ibanez Les Paul copy. And my third guitar, I wanted something pointy. And it's primarily to do with the music style that I liked. Heavier music tends to have pointier guitars, and this I got a fantastic deal on. This is an ESP LTD EX100. It's a Explorer style guitar, but pointier. It's ESP's take on it, and naturally, as it's pointy, it suffers from the big drawback of pointy guitars. Just about every corner has damage on it. It was second hand. The damage was primarily there when I got it, but that's the one downside to pointy guitars. It's a much bigger body shape. You're much more likely to boink it off things. But this is a surprisingly well-playing and high-spec guitar for certainly what it cost back in the day and what I paid for it. I did get this second hand, and because of that the pickups have been changed. We've got a Seymour Duncan 59 in the neck and a Seymour Duncan dime booker in the bridge. Whoever had this was obviously a Pantera fan, and I kind of think it's funny because the amount I paid for this, basically I bought those two pickups and then paid €10 more for the guitar. So I got a really good deal. Here's what it sounds like. Now before we start, what you're going to be hearing today in this demo is all coming from the Zuta GBG 120. I'm going to be running it on the EL34s, and we are going to be using it directly into the Two Notes Captor X. We're going to be running a George Lynch Marshall 412 impulse response. And then we've got, in the effects loop of the Zuta, we've got a little bit of delay coming from the Boss DD500, and we've also got some just a tiny little bit of hall reverb from the Boss RV6. So that is what you're going to be hearing. Now, if you're familiar with the band Kiss, this shape will be recognizable. This is the Iceman shape, probably made most famous by Paul Stanley. And this particular one has been made by Hufschmid Guitars, 100% made by Patrick Hufschmid, all handmade, and it is a beautiful guitar. Like, okay, you could almost look at this like art. I mean, the first thing that people are going to talk about is the top. You can see that weathering there. That is 100 years of natural weathering outdoors. This used to be a door on a barnyard in Switzerland. And my favorite thing about it is it's like you look at it and you see this old top, but then on the side profile you see when you cut the wood it goes back to its original color. So you've got all this weathering and then you've got new wood on the side. The back is just beautiful. It really is just a really fantastic instrument. Now the shape itself, quite interesting because this body is quite large. If you look where the bridge ends and then where the body ends, you've got a sizable amount of room there. So because the body is so big, when I have it on a strap, I like to hang it a bit lower than usual. Because if you've got it up here, it kind of looks a little bit silly. There's a lot more wood there. So I like to have it hung low, and it's just a fantastic instrument. Different pickups in this one. This one, it's got the lace alumatones. These are Hufschmid branded lace alumatones. A very different type of pickup. They're probably worth their own video in explanation because it's a different type of pickup construction entirely, where the actual pickup body itself is the coil winding. And sound-wise, it's kind of a mixture between an active and a passive pickup, but it's entirely passive. So let's hear it. Let's play this guitar. Now this guitar here is the star shape. You can see there it's kind of a mixture between an explorer shape and a V, and it's a little bit of an unusual shape. And the reason that I wanted one of these was because of Chris Holmes. I'm a huge fan of the band Wasp, and Chris Holmes, the original lead guitar player, had a yellow star. It was a parts caster, an assembly of parts. The neck changed a few times on it, but the body stayed the same. Then the body started to decay and erode, and but I wanted a shape like that, but with some of my own specs. This is a warm-off neck. This is the body itself was made out of poplar, made by Pointy Guitars in Wexford in Ireland. He pieced it together out of the parts that I brought him, Seymour Duncan pickups and stuff. But the finish, this is... I liked how a lot of the guitar players in the 80s had custom finished guitars. I just thought, oh, that's cool. I want that. Instead of just a plain standard finish. And this was an easy enough to design. It's the colour of the Irish flag, so I call it the tricolor tri-star. It's a nitro finish, so the white is going a little bit more yellow than white in some places, and it's also very well worn. You can see there's chips and everything out of the finish, but this is a really well playing guitar. I love this guitar. I've had it for years. It plays way better than you might think a parts caster assembled guitar would, but it really does play fantastic. I've recorded quite a bit with this. Most of the guitars, actually all the guitars that you're going to see today, have their own dedicated videos. So I'm going to link them if you want to see them all. There's probably a link in the description. But this is a guitar that doesn't have its own dedicated video yet. This is a cream, a cream voltage. I'm just looking at that in the camera. That is a beautiful guitar. If you've watched my NAMM covered videos, if you watch my Guitar Summit videos, you'll see the Cream are at these trade shows, and they're always kind of the standout at the trade shows. And at the Guitar Summit, Louise from Cream gifted me this. This is a Cream guitar in a beautiful green finish. It's a kind of a resin, but oh wow. If you look there, the pickups, Seymour Duncan blackouts, so active pickups on this. We've got locking tuners, a Wenge neck, even the headstock, the cream headstock, is clear, it's see-through. So there is going to be a dedicated video to this one, a restring, a walkthrough, a talk about it. It's kind of a reverse Explorer, if you want to kind of look at it like that, and even the back is pretty. But yeah, this guitar, absolutely beautiful guitar. It's a straight stage guitar, and I've already gigged with it. It is fantastic. It gets the attention, and that's what I love. That's what I love about pointy guitars. They get a little bit more attention than, you know, the usual Strat shape or whatever it is. And when it's pointy, you can just have a little bit more fun with it. You feel more like a rock star. I don't know. I'm just having fun. But it's beautiful. Look at that color. That is a phenomenal color. I just love how the light hits it. Okay, let's have a listen. Okay, let's go old school. You've seen this probably in a few videos of mine. This is my 1996 Gibson Flying V. When I got this, it was used and abused. Again, it's kind of a common thing with pointy guitars. They do tend to get knocks a lot more. This one probably a few extra knocks than it should. You can't really see them on this camera. Maybe here. There's a lot of scratches on this. It was abused. That is not normal damage, but there are some normal damage pieces on this. But the thing about the Flying V is that this is kind of the original pointy, or one of the original pointies. Way back in 1957, Gibson introduced a few pointy guitars, the Explorer, the Flying V, the Moderne, and introduced them as the guitars of the future. And that couldn't have been more correct, because they flopped at the time, but they became more successful in the future. This here, I love it. It really has a sound, and I also love how it looks. When I was a kid, I thought there was nothing cooler than a Flying V. That was the guitar. I eventually got one, spec'd it out or fixed it up more so, with some bare knuckle pickups, really good sounding pickups, and this thing, especially on the neck pickup for leads, oh, it is good. So but yeah, whenever I play this, again, it has to be hung low to look cool. And because that's what it's all about. It's all about looking cool. But it sounds great, it plays great, and yeah, it's just a guitar that I don't think I'd part with ever. I really like this. Now, finally, this is the last guitar we're going to look at today. We were talking about Chris Holmes. Chris Holmes is a big influence on me. I had the pleasure of opening up for him a couple of times with my band. He's a cool guy, and a great guitar player. Sounds fantastic. And one of the guitars that he was so famous for playing was the Jackson Rhoads. And when I had an opportunity to get one at funny enough, a very good price, all things considering, I did get it. This is the Jackson RR24. It's made in Japan. This one dates back to 2007, I believe, and it is, again, it's visually very striking. You're not going to bring this out to the blues jam. You could, again, all of these guitars you absolutely could use for just about any genre, but it's kind of obvious that this is a bit of a metal orientated guitar. The black and yellow, albeit striper-esque visuals, but you've got a solitary EMG, you've got the Floyd Rose, it's just a pretty badass guitar. Much lighter than I was expecting. Really not very heavy at all for a solid maple neck through guitar. But this looks so cool. Again, you have to keep it low on the strap, I think, just to maintain that coolness. But yeah, this is a really cool guitar. Now, funny enough, this one is one of the few guitars that you could say is an investment piece. Most guitars, terrible investments. At least financially. If you're investing in fun, then they're great investments. But financially, most go down in value, no matter what your salesperson says. However, this guitar went down in value, like they all do, and then went up several years later. So I got this for about a quarter of the price it's worth today. So it actually does financially make sense selling it. But I'm not yet. I'm having too much fun. So yes, let's hear this guitar. I will say it's kind of cool seeing, this guitar, not 1957, but 1967 version of the Flying V, and then the 1980s shape of the Rhoads V. You can see that they're in the same family. They're similar in general vibe. They're kind of cool, no? Actually, I'm curious to know, if you could take one right now, which one would it be? The Jackson Rhoads, the Gibson V, which one suits you? Now, the only negative to pointy guitars, other than the aforementioned, you're more likely to ding it, scratch it. This guitar has been treated very nicely, and yet it still has a couple of scratches there on the end horn. It is ridiculously easy to do it. Very rare to see one without that damage there. But other than that, cases for these guitars are much bigger than your standard Strat, Tele, Les Paul, because the guitars themselves are much bigger. They're pointy and wide and stick out, and they make their presence known. And I like that. I think at heart, as much as I really enjoy Strat shaped guitars, because I do enjoy playing Strats out of the most thing. I really do love pointy guitars too. They do something for me. And you don't have to play super heavy stuff. You can play ballads on these. But yeah, I've had fun today. I hope you have had too. If you did, like the video, subscribe, subscribo, and maybe we'll see you next time on another video. And make sure to subscribe to see the cream full video, which will come out soon. But yes, thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.